Here we are.
Afternoon.
Hello, everybody. It's Friday afternoon, which means it's existential cuppa time. So here we are, ready for the existential cuppa.
Yes, on time.
On time, just. We were so busy having a little chat in the background, I nearly forgot to push the go live button.
So we were late and we're going to talk about time.
So that's right. Today we're actually talking about time.
Yes,
Taking
so that's
the
okay.
time to talk about time.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, so welcome to country.
Yeah, I'll do the acknowledgement if that's okay, and welcome everybody into the space. So just connecting in with the place that I live and paying honour and respect to the elders, past, present and emerging, and giving my heartfelt thanks and deepest gratitude to the Larrakia people for their generous sharing of this country that I live and work on. Thank you for the light, the trees, the birds and the animals, the people, and the sea that surrounds us. And I seek to do spirit work here in accordance with the existing deep spiritual connection of this place, for the healing and enlightenment of all. Thank you. Right. Here we are. It's time. Time to talk time.
It's time to rain. Thank you very much.
You were actually talking about Eckhart Tolle before we hit the go live button.
Yes.
Do you want to share a little bit about him? And I'll just invite anybody who's dropping in to say hello.
I've just been doing some reading again with him, and one of the things he talks about in terms of time is that there are different kinds of time. So and he uses the term clock time, and that would be the time for me to rock up at Linda's house on time for the 2:00 existential cuppa, or an appointment we have to go to, or the things that help us to function in our world. Getting to work on time, having a lunch break, picking up our kids, doing all those extra things that we do. So he talks about those everyday things as being clock time, not time itself. Time itself, no time, no space. So it's about being. It's about being present rather than going, okay, well, we've got this much time to do this, and then we'll move on to the next thing, because that always keeps us out of the present moment, and letting go and recognizing that the clock time we use when we need it, and for the rest of the time we don't.
Yeah. And, clock time, really, it's just an agreement, isn't it?
Yes.
It's an agreement that we've all agreed to.
Yeah.
About how we're going to conduct our lives and how we're going to abide by social mores, so to speak.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, clock time all over the world is, based on Greenwich Mean Time. And we can, there's theory behind how all this evolved and that, but it actually, it doesn't really matter. That's just, again, it's that construct that allows us to function in our societies or in our cultures. But it's not necessary for us to live a fulfilled life.
So if we changed the way our society functioned, we wouldn't need clock time.
Possibly, yes.
We would just be then reverting again to being guided by seasonal change.
Yes.
Perhaps,
yeah. I think as humans living on this earth and wanting to function as a collective, there are things that we need to be able to do effectively so that we can manage the volume of people and all the different things that we would want to do. I mean, if we go back to before they invented watches, how did people function? I mean,
sun up, sundown.
Yep, pretty much. The circadian rhythms of our body, how do they function? There are neurotransmitters in our brain that are directly linked to light and dark. We ate when we were hungry. We got up to milk the cows when it was time to milk the cows.
And I love that you bring that up, because now it's more a case of, it's time I had breakfast, rather than, I'm not actually very hungry this morning, so
Yeah.
I'll wait. Yeah.
Or I'll go out and milk the cows and come back and I'll have my breakfast at 8 o'clock, where most other people might be having their breakfast, but I've already done, 2 or 3 hours, depending on how many cows I have to milk.
Yeah. True.
That kind of thing. So I think, the talk of time is really, it is very much that construct that we've agreed to. And when we look at our agrarian society, or the part of our society that's agrarian, so our farmers, when they're looking at determining how to, harvest a crop, they're not looking at the date and the time. They're looking at, has it grown enough? Has it flowered enough? Is there enough head of wheat on it? So they're looking at when it's ready, based around, the environment. I always laugh about this up here in the Northern Territory. They say, don't swim in the sea between the 1st of October and the 1st of February, 1st of May, sorry.
May.
And it's like, why is that? Oh, well, we have jellyfish. And I said, do jellyfish have watches? So they know, or calendars. Do they know, it's the 1st of October, we have to go now?
Yeah.
It's the 1st of May, we can come back now.
It's like that with the wet season. It's the first day of the wet season.
So where's the rain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, crazy.
And I think that's
we should have brought the calendar.
Oh, yes.
Dang it.
We've got 2 calendars so far that are, one is for the Larrakia people, which is in this region up here in Darwin, and the other one is for the Jawan people, which is for the Katherine region, which is where I was born. And they talk about the seasons, or the way we talk about months, they talk about the seasons, and they describe it in terms of what's available to eat, what's available to, to fish, when to eat the ducks, when to not eat the ducks. It's all based around what's available in the environment at the time. And I think the more urban we've become, the more we've forgotten about that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And I think if we can maybe in our urban environment function more on what's going on around us, we may have a better way of managing time.
Absolutely. And that really illustrates, I think, the difference between what you started with was clock time, and I often refer to that as linear time, because we have a tendency to see a timeline, and here we are in the present, here we are in the past, and here we are in the future, and that's it. You can't vary from that, because time only flows along a line, and apparently it only goes one way.
Yeah.
And yet there is the idea of now, and that means that there is no time, or all time is present in the one moment.
Yeah.
So I think as we move into consciousness, more conscious awareness, and as we're able to sit more readily, consciously in the present moment, the need for linear time is going to go out the window, and we're going to be more able to be in harmony with the needs of those around us. So rather than having to have rigid structure to tell us what are, when our requirements are needed by when, there'll be more a sense of openness and connection, where things just flow the way they're meant to flow. There's no need for push or rigidity or time frame.
Or deadline.
Deadline
means you're dead when you get there.
Let's get rid of the deadlines. Yeah, we should have done that in my career.
Indeed. Yeah, I agree. I think the more aware we become of these different kinds of constructs that we've created as humans to function, but the more we recognise their importance in the context of what they're important for, not to incorporate them into every aspect of our world. So when Linda and I were talking before this podcast, I said to her, I need to have a little clock where I can see it. And I have certain things set up in my clinic or around my clinic where if somebody else walks in, I can hear them come in when I'm already working with a patient. Because when I'm working with that patient, I'm not thinking about time. I'm not thinking about anything else like that. And I think that's a really important thing. When we're seeing people or we're working with people and we're getting them one after the other, you need to have some things set up for us to make it easier for us to do that. But a lot of the time, I'm not even, I go, oh yeah, that's the time, but it doesn't compute with me that I have to finish up now and I've got another patient. Because you haven't finished the work that you're doing with them. And I think that's a really big thing too. So we need to, we do need those tools, those clock time tools, but we need to understand what they're for. And we need to only use them for those things. And then the rest of the time, allow things to be, and know that there is no future, because when the future gets here, it's actually the now.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it could be quite different to the future that you're dreaming of or planning for or fearing.
Yeah, exactly.
Or worrying about.
Exactly.
Which, what you were saying about the way you work is a really nice segue into what I wrote in the description about today's episode, which was No Time, No Space.
Yes.
Which is a Reiki concept. And it's not, it's not exclusive to Reiki by any means, but it's certainly one of the key concepts to find a place of acceptance with when you become a practitioner, particularly around the idea of distant healing, because it really ties in all of those ideas of us all being energy, and energy having no start or end, and energy can't be destroyed, and all that sort of thing, and that whatever happens in this space can happen just as easily from this space to around the world.
Yeah.
Just as easily, because there are no constraints.
No.
Energy knows no bounds. Energy knows no time. Reiki knows no bounds and no time. So as a Reiki practitioner, really getting into a place of comfort with that, of accepting it at a really deep, experienced, knowing level in the body that time is actually a construct, is, it's a challenge, but it opens the door, I think, for us to really visit a different way of being.
I agree. I think I feel like it's a freedom, the acceptance of no time, no space, and therefore allows for a sense of freedom to come in. We're not being constrained by so many different things. And I think that's a really important thing, that too many of us, or all of us, are being constrained by a whole lot of different things. And so we need to unconstrain ourselves. We need to accept that this is how it is, but we're not happy, so let's change it. Let's look at some other way of doing it. Let's work out, how we can perceive this differently, so that we can actually live a more, I want to say functional life, but I don't actually think it is. We live a more flowing life. We're in our own natural flow, we're in our own natural way of being. So I think that's a really important thing. Hi, Bridget.
Hello, Bridget. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. We are talking about time. And it's kind of mind-boggling. I mean, the Reiki concept that I was talking about before is also supported by quantum physics.
Yes.
Now, I really don't know anything at all about quantum physics, and I won't even try to explain, other than I've done some reading and gone, well, that sounds a bit like the Reiki idea of no time, no space. So, I think what we need to remember is all of these things are developed to help us understand our reality, to help us understand the world that we live in, and to manage the way that we're living in it.
That's true, yes.
So, really, we're living in a theory. We're living in a theoretical world that we think is actually fact and real.
Mm.
But until it's disproven, it's just a theory, or until it's proven, it's just a theory.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm asking for is, inviting an openness to looking at, can we let some of our rigidity go? Can we let some of our constructs that are holding us in place and working like clockwork go slightly? Let them go for a little while. One of the first things I did when I left my corporate job was I took my watch off, and I haven't put it back on since.
Yeah.
I found that was kind of, for me, a really big symbolic moment of setting myself free, because I worked in an industry that was deadline driven. So time was really intensely ingrained, and everything was planned out months in advance. And yeah, I didn't like it.
I think children are a really wonderful example for all of us in terms of no time, no space.
Yeah.
Or animals. Animals are really, really good.
But the other thing is, it's like when you get, I'm not sure what we're twins about there, Bridget. Was it taking the watch off? Possibly. But that idea of getting in the zone.
Yeah.
And I know for you it's like that when you work, and I know for me it's like that when I work, and part of that is the element of Reiki, but a part of it is, when you're in your zone of genius, or you're in that space of flow, there is no time. Like when I was a kid, I used to play the piano, and I'd do all the practice bits that I needed to do, and then I would just start to play for me, and I would be transported. There would be no time for me. I would just play and play, and sometimes hours would pass and I would have no idea how long I'd been at the piano. The same with drawing.
Yeah.
And I know with my children, it is a child thing, but not necessarily. We still find those moments, I think, as adults, when we allow ourselves to really slip into something that is so absorbing. And maybe that's why we have clock time, because we're not so much absorbed by living our life as maybe once upon a time we were. We're more absorbed by working in our life.
Yeah, I think
to strict guidelines.
I think that I agree that's probably why clock time's evolved, is because of that. But I actually don't think that we need clock time the way we think we do. I know we've been heavily conditioned to do that, but I actually don't think we need it to that degree. When you feel a relief that your child has finally finished school and your world isn't ruled by school timetables and which part of the year, okay, it's fourth term. Okay, these are the things we have to do, and you get a sense of relief. That's an indication that you've been strongly managed or controlled by the school system, by clock time. And, we can choose not to be, but, most of us get into that because we're wanting to meet the needs of our kids and all of that kind of stuff. But I think one of the things that Eckhart talks about is, even within the clock time system that we live in every moment we can be in the present moment. So yes, we might be sitting waiting to pick our kids up from school, or yes, we might be waiting for another appointment, or yes, we might be waiting for a car park, or yes, we need the washing to be hung out, or whatever. But in those moments, we're in the present moment. So even though at the macro level in our world, we're still being managed or controlled by clock time, we're actually in those moments, in the present moment. And so we can be free in the present moment. And I was just saying to Linda, there is no future, because every moment becomes the future.
Yeah.
The future becomes the moment. So I think it's one of those things that we need to consider and be mindful of, and just be present in each moment, whether we wear a watch or not, or whether we, follow clock time or not. Unless we live in a cave and do our own thing and don't participate with people, we often will always need some degree of clock time at some point. So we, yes, it's lovely to live in our cave, but we also, need to engage, because human beings are community creatures.
And again, that's the social agreement that we've made, isn't
Indeed,
it? As a society, this is how we honour each other's moments.
Yes.
By sharing them in accordance with agreed points in the moment.
Yeah, agreed norms. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in each of those moments, in that clock time agreement, we can be present. We can still be present. The two are not mutually exclusive. We can actually still do it together. And I think just being mindful of that is you know, that door into more freedom in our worlds and less restriction and less stress, because we're feeling like we have no time all the time because we're doing that. But if we're in every moment in the present, then our flow becomes much easier to do and much simpler to manage. And for me, I think time, I mean, I'm really lucky that I can work in a field that I love, that I'm very passionate about, and I can experience that every time I work with a patient, which can be very frustrating for my family, let me just say. But it's, but for other people who can't, even if you work to a deadline or you work in an environment that is very fast paced and you need to be on the ball all of the time, that doesn't take away that present moment in each of those times, even though you might be running around doing all the things you need to do in your world. It doesn't stop that from happening. So we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We just need to go, okay, I'm in my present moment right now and I'm running around like a headless chook.
Yeah, I guess what we're talking about is just loosening the reins a bit and, you know, accepting.
Changing perspective.
Just, allowing a little bit of perspective shift to come in, because time is fluid. Even when we are working with clock time, it is fluid.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And I think we have a danger of, I think it's the way we like to explore the world is to divide it up into little bits and see how it works, which I completely understand. But then we like to make sure it stays in those separate little bits so that we know how it functions, because it can now only function because we've put it into little bits.
Yes.
No?
I'll have to think about
some of that understanding that goes in with, I can only function if it goes this way. It's like learning in a linear progression.
Yes.
Whereas sometimes learning needs to happen in more of a circular or a spiral.
Yes, I agree.
Kind of
way.
So, and often stepping out of kind of the masculine paradigm into the feminine paradigm actually requires being open to that shift of coming out of we do it this way and we start at the top and we work our way down to the bottom.
Yeah.
Whereas in the feminine way of things, it's more like, okay, and we might start over here, but you need to know about this. So we'll come back over here so that you can apply that over here.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to here, you've got all the skill that you need and the understanding that supports it.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's absolutely, and you know, that brings in that distinction between the masculine and the feminine. And I think that's a really good thing. Because of the society that we have set up and because of the masculine paradigm that we live within, incorporating the feminine into that is, and being conscious of that actually is really, really important, I think. And sometimes we can't step out of the masculine because of the society in which we live. What we can do, though, is incorporate the feminine into that. And we can utilize a feminine approach in anything that we do within this masculine world.
Yeah.
And I see that with, currently I have a patient who has built a very big business and in a very male-dominated world. This particular industry is very male-dominated, but she's utilised all these feminine energies, all these feminine perspectives in business, and she's running this business very successfully, and people don't understand why they're doing so well, but it's because of what she's doing. It's because of how she's doing it, and it's because she trusts, and she's allowing for the flow to evolve. She's not following some linear time frame that some man has told her to do. And I'm not saying that this is what all men do, and I'm not saying that this is what any men do. I'm just saying that the masculine is a more linear approach. It's a more, step-by-step approach. And sometimes we do need that, but other times, and I think most of the time actually, we learn, everybody learns differently, but we learn by discovering a theory or learning about a theory and then applying that theory in some fashion, whether it be at school or whether it be in your personal life or whatever, to see whether it actually works for you and see whether it's actually your truth. So is 1 + 1 2 in your world? Oh, yes, it is. Okay, well, that's fine. It's that kind of thing. And so as long as we're in tune, as long as we're aware of ourselves at whatever level we're at, we actually can apply that perspective, I think. And that then lessens the hold of that linear time on us. And that's, I think, a really lovely thing. Look, some people thrive on linear time. It gives them boundaries. It helps them to feel settled and comfortable.
Yeah.
I think the older you get, particularly us women, and particularly Linda and I, the less we like linear time.
But maybe it's just the less we like anything or anyone telling us what to do.
Indeed, yeah. But I think it comes back to that. Our intuition, or the intuition that we all possess, allows us to recognize that it's not as valuable as it once might have been for us.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was alluding to before, about if we finally get to a point in our evolution where we can let go of linear time because we are present, we are connected. It's the intuitive connection, it's the energetic understanding that allows us to flow in and out of each other's realities in perfect timing.
Yes.
We won't need linear time to make sure that we're not keeping someone waiting or turning up too early or spending way too long watching Netflix or whatever it is that you're doing. That you are meeting your, I don't want to say obligations, because I'm trying to get people to ditch obligation because it's a heavy load. But meeting your agreements is probably the term I'm looking for, in a timely manner.
Yeah.
Because it's divine timing.
Yes.
It's perfect timing. There is no other time. Yeah.
I agree. I use timely matter a lot. I use that term a lot when people ask me, how long will it take to fix me? Your body's timely matter. It will do it in its own time, in your own time, and the more of this, the more holistic the process is, then very often the faster it is.
Oh, I like that. The bit that stood out to me there was your own time.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Time is a personal understanding of your reality.
Yes, I think that's a perfect way to put it, actually.
Yeah.
I really do. I think that's an absolutely perfect way to put it. It is very personal, and it is very much that understanding of our own individual reality. And the wonderful thing about this is that there is no one thing that anyone has to fit into the construct. Everyone has their own time. Yep. Everyone has their own capacity to manage their own time themselves. Everyone has all the tools. They already possess everything to decide what to do or what not to do, or how to do it, or when to do it, or any of those things. So it's really just a matter of remembering and being conscious and present, so that you can utilize those things when things aren't working for you in your own time.
Yeah. And,
or they are working for you in your own time.
I was just thinking, sorry, I wasn't listening to you properly, Marg. I was thinking about intuition and time, and, here's a nice little game you can play with yourself about guess the time. Start opening yourself up to being intuitive about the flow of time and how well you can meet your obligations without being strictly tied to clock time, so to speak. See if you can work out the rhythms and flow.
Yeah.
Like when I wake up in the middle of the night, I like to play this game of, gee, I wonder what time it is.
Yeah, absolutely. How
See
does
if
it
I can
feel?
work it out
What time
before
does
I
this
actually
feel like?
before I actually get up and go and find a clock somewhere to see what time it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but, you know, trying to feel into the rhythm of the day to see, well, where exactly are we? And sometimes it's really tricky, you know, if it's a really overcast day and you think, oh, my goodness, looking out there, it's about 5 o'clock. Looking at the clock, it's 3 o'clock. Okay. It's a very dark grey
I don't
day.
remember overcast days.
It's a bit overcast now.
Yeah, over there, but not here.
No, true.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get some more water, Marg. You entertain the troops. Okay,
there we go.
Cool. That stopped me moving, didn't it?
Sorry.
You did a good job there. Well done. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good game to play, and I do too. I often play that, wishing that it was earlier than it actually is. I think one of the really good things to help us start that process is, you know, what time do we wake in the morning? Do we need an alarm clock to wake? Do we need to keep snoozing it? Do we need to, you know, set it so it's actually fully daylight? What time do we go to bed at night? You know, do we go when it's dark, or do we stay up? You know, they talk about, you know, two groups of people who are larks, they're up at dawn, and people who are night owls, and they, you know, go to bed much later, and that's how their body clock has been set, and that's how they function better, doing it that way. And trying to change that actually is not a good idea. Obviously we need to get between 7 and 9 hours sleep a night. However, if we don't go to bed till midnight, then we really can't be getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning. We need to at least be 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. And if you can't manage that, you know, that then causes a problem if you're a night owl.
So I've got a question for you. You know how your body has certain functions that it performs in a rhythm overnight. So if you are a night owl and you do prefer to go to bed at midnight, does your body just naturally adjust its bodily functions to suit that clock?
Yeah. As long as it's still dark.
Whoops, I said clock.
As long as it's still dark, then you're fine. It's only if you've been, so shift workers suffer quite badly, because if they're working over the night period and then they sleep during the day, that those circadian changes don't happen quite as well. So our bodies are not as prepared. So shift workers get tired very quickly and much faster than people who actually work 8 till 4:21 or, you know, work during the day. You know, they say shift work now is, by the WHO, it's been considered as a cancer risk. Okay. You know, so long-term shift workers actually have a much higher chance of developing cancer because of the disruption to those circadian rhythms in the body. You know, people who, you know, work in jobs where they're on for 24 hours have big problems. You know, there are lots of things that can affect how we sleep and therefore affect how our body time functions happen. And if we don't get those jobs done, then the next day isn't as good. We're a little more sluggish, we're a little more tired, and we put that down to not having enough time to sleep. But it also relates to those functions, those jobs that need to be done in preparation for the next day. But as soon as there's any daylight at all, and your body feels it or sees it, your melatonin reduces, your cortisol goes up, and you wake up.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, night owls need to be really diligent about how much sleep they get, and they need to be really diligent about how dark their room is, so that when the sun comes up, they don't wake up straight away because their mind hasn't registered the light. So that's a really important thing too. Yeah. So it's not, you know, so our physical body will change. We'll age much faster if we don't get enough sleep, if we're not making sure that our body does the things that it needs to do to function properly. And, you know, none of us want to age any faster than we are. So we want to
sleep, really.
We want to be sleep. Have enough time to get sleep. Yeah. So
well, you know, when you say have enough time to get sleep, really it comes down to choice. For a lot of people, it's about choice. Yeah. It's about, you know, choosing to have an earlier bedtime than perhaps they have been, to give the body the full the full amount of sleep to actually go through all of those processes that it needs to do, so that you're ready the next day to be functioning at the best you can possibly be, rather than half done.
Well, that's right. I mean,
half baked.
And it depends on what stage in our life we're at as well, because obviously new mums with a new baby don't get a lot of sleep.
No, that's true.
And so their timing for sleep is disrupted because of BUP. And if they're breastfeeding, it means they have to do it all the time as well. I'm
so glad you brought new babies in, because they're the perfect time disruptors. If ever you wanted to get rid of clock time.
they're perfect. It's baby time.
Yeah, it's baby time.
And I think baby time is the beginning of us letting go of clock time.
Absolutely. Yeah, certainly. When your life suddenly turned upside down by looking after a newborn baby, that's a really brick between the eyes sort of thing when it comes to our social constructs about how it could, baby's not going to go to sleep at 7 p.m.
which is when we want them to.
Yeah, no.
Hell, not even toddlers will do that.
Yeah. But I think that, that's kind of probably one of the few things that we actually have in the modern society that brings us back to the reality of trusting your own internal rhythms and working with what's occurring naturally, as opposed to trying to make something fit a particular timeline.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Agree. The other time for children is teenagers, because their brains are changing and they're culling away all the things they did when they were younger, because they're not using them, and they're specializing down, and their neurotransmitters are readjusting, and they're actually even lark teenagers require more sleep, and they stay up later, and they
sleep all day.
They want to sleep all day. And this is because of that hormonal shift that's occurring both in their body but also in their brains as well. And so in Europe, I can't remember what country it was, but it's one of the northern countries, they adjust the time for children to go to school. So they start school at 10 rather than at 8 or 8:30, so that the kids can sleep a bit longer and they function better.
That makes so much sense.
They function much, much better. And their productivity and their work is much better for them too, because they've had that extra sleep, because as their brains are changing, they want to stay up later, and that's when things happen for them, and they get worked up, all that kind of stuff. So all the way through our life.
Yeah.
There are these different times, or these different developmental stages, and we need to go with the flow.
So we need to adjust and be open.
And being too rigid with linear time actually causes much more drama than it actually ever needs to. If we just go with the flow of development. Yes, I know.
There's rumbly thunder. We're getting excited.
It is, yes. We're hoping that it comes over.
Yeah, please do.
And we have a big storm. So I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
Older people, the elderly, don't necessarily need as much time to sleep. They don't need as much sleep. They often do, somewhere between 5 and 8 hours. They still really need 7 to 8, but they manage better on that, or they can cope with that for longer, because again, their brain is changing again as well.
Yeah.
So. Even physiologically, time is not linear. Time is, it flows based around our genetics, our environment, our lifestyle, everything. So I think we just throw the watches away and start living in the present moment.
Yeah, but I think before we do throw the watches away, we need to have probably a general consensus that we're going to relax into our intuition, so that we can actually, still conduct business and life, I guess, in a way that is honouring everybody's input and time.
Indeed.
In a way that
is
respectable.
I'll agree with that. Yeah, we need an agreement. Okay?
We need an agreement, because basically, that's what we were saying right at the beginning.
Indeed.
Clock time is really just an agreement. This is how we agree to honour everybody's time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing too is when we get into patterns or routines, we actually do. We don't need a clock to tell us that it's time to get up in the morning. We know that it's 7 o'clock, or we know it's 6 o'clock, or we know it's, 5 o'clock, or whatever. We know it's 9:30 and we need to go to bed.
So really, it's about trusting the body.
Yes,
trusting that the body actually knows what's best for you. What time is a really good time for you to get up? What's a good time for you to eat? What's a good time for you to go to bed? Yeah.
All those things. I agree. I think that's a really so it comes back to that trust, which we're going to be talking about soon.
Yeah. Trust is another item on the list. Well, you know what? We've been talking about time for a little bit of time now.
It's time to finish.
I think it might be time to stop.
Okay, I agree. It is time. I need that cuppa.
I think we talked time to a stop, to a standstill. So thank you for those who've joined us live. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments and we'll come back through and answer any questions and comments and so on. If you're watching the replay, make sure you put #replay in and we'll come back through. And if you've got questions, pop them in. We'll come back and answer your questions. And next week, we're doing something a little bit different.
Yes.
Next week, Margaret is attending a school function. So I will be having an interview with the lovely Adair Palmer. So stay tuned for that one. And then we've got something super special lined up for the following existential cuppa.
We have.
Christmas is coming, so we've got something special. Yeah. So have a wonderful Friday, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Stay safe too.
Yes, stay safe. Okay, bye now.